Hola, amiga, and welcome to the Latina Leadership Podcast, a podcast by Latinas for all women. Get ready because today's conversation is really special.
Hola, amigas, and welcome to another episode of the Latina Leadership Podcast. We are here with a very, very special guest, and I'm going to let her introduce herself. So, Stephanie, who are you and what do you do?
Well, first of all, thank you. Thank you for having me. Like you said, my name is Stephanie Leal, and I am what I consider myself an artist and graphic designer, but I really do everything and anything that I can, art-wise, from, fine arts, painting to more digital like photography. So I'm a little bit all over the place, but I would say graphic design is my expertise.
Right. So I want to start from your origins. How did you stumble into the world of arts, and how did you what were your first steps into this world?
Well, from my earliest memories, I think art has always been part of my life. I was always that kid that was drawing everywhere and anything. I always tell this story because I think it's funny. I am the youngest of four siblings, and I was the only one that drew on the wall, and I got in trouble for it, obviously. But, it all makes sense now, I like drawing ever since I was in diapers. So, since childhood, but then I started to take it seriously once I was in college. That's when I started to study fine arts, and then from there I studied graphic design at the University of Houston.
I'm going to ask this as a Latino or from a Latino perspective, because I know our parents could be a little bit conservative in the decisions that we make around our professional careers. How was that for you and your family? Like breaking the news like, hey, I want to study arts.
Oh man, that's such a good question. I was very, I would say, blessed that my family has always supported my decisions. And I mean, I would lie to you if I told you the road was just black and white and I just wanted to do art. Like, that's not how it went. I had a lot of self-doubt. All my life, everybody told me, hey, you're good at art. Like, can you paint me this? Can you do me that? Draw that? And somehow I still kind of didn't see a career in art. Like, I would think, oh, there's no opportunities in art. So again, it wasn't like, hey, I'm gonna be an artist. No, it wasn't like that. But when I started to study at the San Jacinto College, for whatever reason, God has a plan, and I took some art classes, and I'm like, hey, I love this. This is undeniable at this point. Like, I love it. And it got to the point that I was like, okay, should I keep going? Should I keep studying? And at that point, my oldest sister, she was like, hey, why don't you try photography or graphic design? And I honestly didn't know what graphic design was, but I do remember my high school teacher and previous professors telling me like, hey, you have a good eye for graphic design. So I'm like, okay, maybe we'll give it a try. And that's when I decided to apply to the University of Houston and as a major with the graphic design. And I just fell in love with it. Like, I took a few classes, I took fundamentals of graphic design, and I'm like, man, this is it. This is my thing. So, long story, but yeah, it wasn't always just black and white, like, oh, I'm going to be an artist. No, it wasn't like that.
I want to touch on that point of self-doubt, because I think that we struggle with that from time to time. Not only creatives, but everybody feels that from time to time. What's your technique to kind of fight it or fight those voices?
I would say it took a long time to gain confidence. Even to call myself an artist, like, it's pretty new to me. Again, self-doubt is really, I don't know. I feel like it's just, the more you practice, the more confident you become, right? And at some point, you have to trust that the skills you've learned, the amount of times you painted, the amount of times you've done a graphic for someone, you become confident through practice, right? So to me, it's like I've done this before, you can do it again. And I got the chance to work at the Houston Dynamo, which is the professional team here in Houston, and the Houston Dash. And working in sports is super fast paced. Like, you don't have time to doubt yourself. And honestly, that was the biggest blessing for me because, like I said, you don't have time to doubt yourself. You're like, yeah, like this is done, turn it in, and it looks great, So you just have to trust yourself. And even if you know you could do better, because as artists, we always think we can do better, right? But just trust yourself, trust that you've learned enough, that you have that knowledge, that you have those skills. And it's just developing trust in yourself.
Now that you mentioned that, like that relationship with the soccer teams and going into that world of sports, how does it feel to be a woman in that space?
Yeah, I mean, another great question. I think that's one of those things that I try not to think about too much. Like, the type of person that I am is like, I just get to work, man. Like, I'm just gonna do my best. I'm gonna do my best work, and I don't care if I'm a woman. I don't care about any of that. Like, I'm gonna do the best. At the end of the day, I represent myself, and with that being said, it is a very male-dominated field, but I don't know if I should say this, but like, I'm my only competition. Like, if I put in like if I put my work out there, like, it doesn't matter if I'm a woman. Obviously, I'm very prideful that I am a woman, and I am in a male-dominated field, and that is important. But personally, like, I think since I'm representing women, I'm going to represent them well, right? And it's just all about like putting my best work out there.
And I think that's beautiful because it's a very sports mentality to it, right? Like, it's me against myself, and I'm like fighting against the person that I was yesterday and pushing for the person that I want to be tomorrow. Nothing more, nothing less. And I do think that that's very like sports perspective. So in terms of how to break into that sports world and be part of that sports world, what would be your recommendation for a little kid, for a little version of Stephanie that's looking forward to working maybe in the sports world? What would you tell them?
To myself, I think about myself when I was very young. Again, a lot of self-doubt. I would say believe in yourself, because it doesn't matter if everybody tells you, hey, you're good at it, keep doing it. It doesn't matter who's supporting you. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, it's if you believe in yourself, then you can create great things. And I think that was a turning point for myself. Like, hey, I can actually do this. I can actually be part of something great and something big. And I mean, I would just say it takes a lot of dedication. It takes a lot of focus. So, but at the end of the day, if you're doing what you love, I think something good is going to come out of it.
Yeah, that's very true. That is very true. And I do think that it's a matter of practicing a lot and kind of looking yourself into the mirror and being like, what can I do better? What do I do really good right now? What are my skills? What are the skills that I need for the future? And kind of building towards that. Speaking of skills, what do you think are the best skills for a graphic designer, for an artist today, especially with the rise of AI and all these different things that are making a lot of noise in the world? What do you think are the core skills for someone who wants to enter into this field?
I think that's very simple. I think what separates us artists from AI or anything like that is just, I'm sorry if I can't say this word, autenticidad. No sé, yeah. I don't know how to say it in English, but that, and how you tell your story. If you're real, people are gonna connect with you, and that's something that AI, in my opinion, is never going to deliver. I think at some point people are gonna crave more from artists because it's from someone. It comes from someone. It comes from a person with a background, with a story to tell. And personally, as a graphic designer, I think AI is a great tool. I'm not gonna deny that. I think, but a keyword is a tool. Like, I don't I don't think it should be abused in any way or overused or, but at the end of the day, it can be a great tool for us. But again, I don't think it compares to what we as humans can create, that connection and that passion behind our work.
You mentioned a lot of that, of like your story and translating your story into your art. How do you think your story is reflected into your specific art?
I mean, the obvious, right? The FIFA World Cup poster.
I was dancing around that. I was going to get there at some point.
Yeah, I mean, that one is, I'm saying the obvious because that one I do feel like there's a lot of my own story in there. Obviously, it's inspired by the city of Houston. But to me, it's a very personal piece. Like there's a lot that inspired that was through my story, and my heritage. But yeah, I mean, like if we go into details, like the poster, the cowboy has the astronaut has a cowboy hat, and that was kind of like a fun touch of like Houston rodeo, and also like being from Monterrey, we wear hats over there too, and even my favorite element is a broken net. And people ask me, oh, why is it broken? And to me, like growing up, I never had a net. I didn't have like a perfect field, like I played in the streets, I played in the mud, like soccer to me is more than just like a nice stadium, like soccer belongs to anyone, you don't really need the perfect conditions, you don't need the perfect, ball or whatever, like, and those are little things that, came from my own experience with the sport. So, yeah.
And I think we embed a lot of that, not only our personality and lived experience into our art, but especially with soccer. It's such a universal language, right? So it doesn't matter if you're from Latin America or from Africa or from Asia, you speak the same language and you understand the same conditions, because even if you see a field in the middle of Nigeria, it looks pretty similar to one you would see in Monterrey or you would see here in Colombia. Like it is going to feel very close to our home and to our idea of what the sport is. Now, walk me through the process. How did you manage to first like hear about the contest and decided to take into the initiative of like, I'm going to do a poster for this? So walk me through the process of building the World Cup poster. How did that came to be?
It's so funny how things work, because when I found out, I maybe like, I don't know, maybe 2 weeks or a week before I left Dynamo, and I was like, okay, I'll explore something else. I'm ready to expand my horizons. And then the art director at Dynamo, he sent me a post, and it was from the Houston FIFA committee, and they were basically looking for artists, local artists. And basically how it worked is you would submit your portfolio, and then from there they would choose the top 3 with the best portfolio. And from there, those 3 would create a poster. And, again, self-doubt, I at a good second, I was like, man, maybe like I shouldn't apply. Like, I didn't have like a good portfolio. I'm not kidding when I finished my portfolio the day before the deadline. And, but I'm like, you know what? Like, this is such a huge opportunity. And, I mean, come on, it's a World Cup. Like, yeah. It's the World Cup. I don't know what else to say. Like I think it was an opportunity that I knew how big it was to let it go. And again, with all the self doubt, with all the fear, with everything, I applied to it, and then I didn't hear back for like a few weeks. I think it was like couple weeks maybe. And I remember thinking about it. I'm like, okay, just let it go. It didn't happen. They probably already got their artist and whatever. But so yeah, I mean, I got an email saying that I was one of the 3 finalists, and I mean, I was super excited. Yeah.
And then after you have that email in your inbox, what were the next steps? What were the following moments after that?
Yeah. So after that, when they told me I was selected, um, gosh, it's almost a blur at this point. But basically, they gave me the guidelines. They gave me, like, this is kind of our target audience, and um, yeah, just a few guidelines that we'd had to follow. And then pretty much like get to work right away because we had, I think the process was a month long. So I found out in um, early November, if I remember correctly, and then it was due by end of. No, don't believe me with dates. I'm very bad at dates, but it was a month. I know that. I know that. And at the time I was working full time. Like I had a full time job. So like my life consisted of like going to work early, dealing with traffic, coming back from work, dealing with traffic, and then working on the poster like the rest of the night. And it was like that for me for a whole month. From sketching to coming up with ideas and refining and then going digital. So it was a lot of work. Yeah, it was a lot of work.
Just out of curiosity, how many drafts did you have that you rejected before proceeding with something else?
Not a lot of people ask this, which I'm very surprised. But I'll be honest with you. From the beginning, I had this image in my head that I couldn't get out of it. Like I couldn't get it out of my head. And that's usually how I work. Like I have an idea and I'm so stubborn that I'll make it work. Like I will make it work. So very early on, I knew I wanted an astronaut. I knew that I didn't want it to be like una chilena. I don't know how to say chilena in English. So I didn't want it to be like to do that because I knew someone else was gonna have that idea, which Dallas did, and I'm happy I didn't do it. But again, I had this image in my head, and I sketched it out super fast on my iPad, and from there I'm like, no, okay, you have to like try other things, like don't commit to this one. And I did like a few others, and I'm like, no, like I'm sold. I'm sold. I know I can get out of my head, and so just to answer your question, not many, not many sketches to be honest, but a lot of sketching for that poster, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's the same concept. So it was following through with the
Exactly.
same concept. Oh, I understand
Exactly.
that. And how do you feel now that you see it literally everywhere in the city?
No, I mean it's crazy. Working with Dynamo and Houston Dash, I got to do a few billboards, and I designed the Houston Metro wrap. So I've seen my work in the city before, but this is just in another level. Yeah, I mean it's insane. It's insane. I saw it in billboards. I saw it obviously in T-shirts, keychains. I don't even know what else. Magnets. I'm wearing a hat. This was a gift, so I'm wearing this today. Um, so no, it's been crazy. The other day for the USA game, I went to the park and people gathered to watch the game at the park, and there was a little boy who sat in front of me who was wearing my T-shirt. And to me, that moment was really, really special because I've seen it on a few adults, but not really on a kid, like a small kid, which is what I kind of saw happening. And no, I mean, that's kind of like, it's surreal. Like I can't explain it. Like I saw the kid wearing my shirt, and then you see the screen with the World Cup happening. It's just incredible that I'm even part of it.
Not only even part of it, but you're part of history. I don't want to put it in a big place, but it is something huge because I remember when I was a kid and I saw the posters for Italy, I think it's 76, or the World Cup in Spain, or even South Africa, or other World Cups. I remember the poster. The poster is one of the first things that I clearly remember. and you're part of it now. And like you're a part of something huge. So I do need to ask this. How does your parents feel about it?
Yeah.
No, I mean they're super super excited, really happy, very proud. It's very typical for Mexican parents. At least my parents, they're like chill about things. They're like, good job, mija. A pat in the back. And it was like that when I was selected as a third finalist because I don't think they understood how big of a chance this was. Um,
Yeah.
and I like to tell this story with my mom. My mom is not a huge soccer fan. Um, like she follows Mexico. She likes Tigres, but she's not like me, right? I'm very much a soccer fan, and I told her about the opportunity, and then she told me, okay, if you win, you're gonna give me $100. And I'm like, okay. I'm like, okay, bet. And we shook hands. We're like, okay, all right. And then time passed, obviously, and then I got the news, and um, I went home to my parents, and I'm like, hey, mom, like, guess what? And then she asked me, what? Do you have the $100? And then she started laughing, like, kind of not believing it. And I'm like, yeah, actually, yeah, I have $100 for you. And she was just super happy. Like, I'm pretty sure she teared up, and yeah, it was very special for sure.
Surreal. That's
Yeah.
beautiful. That's such a wonderful memory to have um, around it. And uh, for your parents, their relationship with Houston, do how is their relationship with Houston and seeing the poster and seeing the representation that you see of the city there?
It's so funny. My mom, she sent me a message this morning. She's like, ¿Cómo está mi hija famosa? Like, how's my famous daughter? I'm like, mom, like, that's so sweet. But no, again, they're so proud. And, we migrated here. We've been here for years now, for 2 decades. So this is our home. And, to be able to represent Houston and being from Mexico, I think it's something they really, you know, I'm sure they're proud. I'm sure they're proud. So
What does this city mean to you now that you mentioned that pride of being from like immigrating from another place and coming here to Houston and kind of embracing the city and feeling the embrace of the city towards you and your family? How does it feel to be from Houston for you and kind of like translate that pride into that poster?
yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, Houston. Again, I was born in Monterrey, but Houston is my home, and it was here where I got to develop my art skills and my art career. So I mean, Houston is home. Houston is where my family is. Houston is a city, to me, a city of opportunities. I think it's a city of dreamers. Um, and I mean, I love the diversity. I love that you can literally go to the grocery store and find someone who's from somewhere else in the world, and I keep saying that people say that the world is coming to Houston, but because of the World Cup. But to me, like, the world's already here. Like, we have
Yeah.
so many cultures, and I'm just happy that it's expanding now, right? Like, through this huge event. Um, but no, I love Houston. I love its diversity. I love um, how weird it is, how bold and energetic. So no, I mean, Houston is my home, and it's definitely a place where I got to be creative and be myself.
I love that. I love that. And I think I see that pride ever since I saw the poster. I was shocked by how accurate it was to represent a lot of different things at the same time, but did it in such a beautiful way and such a simple. Because I think the idea is rather something that you think it's so simple that it's genius because it is something that presents the city so much, but it has so much details around it that tell different types of stories, and I love that you did that with the poster. Now that this kind of part of your life is happening right now, what's next? What are the next steps for you?
What's next? Oh man. Short answer is I don't know, but I'm excited. I want to keep growing as an artist. I want to keep growing as a designer. I definitely want to keep creating things that are impactful. That's my biggest goal. Something that I feel proud of. At the end of the day, like I want to be proud of what I do. And even now, like I do have a full-time job, and I work for people who have disabilities, and that to me is important. But again, like I just want to keep growing as an artist, keep creating, and hopefully my work will keep, inspiring people. Like I really want to inspire people, and I think I'm doing that okay so far. So yeah.
Based on that kid you saw the other day, and I think you're there. You're going through that. And you mentioned working right now with people with disabilities, right?
Yes. So I'm a graphic designer for a company that works for people with disabilities. Yeah.
And I think I'm gonna wrap up with this one because I really want to hear about that because I love that the social aspect of it. How do you think it's different to do graphic design for a sports team, which is social in a different level, than to do it for an organization or a company that helps and goes through those processes specific for those for that population?
Yeah, that's a great question because when I first got this opportunity to work with them, it was such a contrast to me. Like, how can I go from, you know, soccer and sports and movement to maybe something that it's completely the opposite, right? There's people who are struggling to maybe move or get around. But reality is like at the at the end of the day, it's still about movement. It's still about helping people live their best life. And to me, at this point, it's not that different. We're making a difference in people's lives and maybe a bigger impact, if I'm honest. So, and I love that I get to do that through art. Like how cool is that? And yeah, no, I'm just happy I get to do what I love. That's pretty much it.
That's beautiful. That's really, really beautiful. So, Angelica, our founder, always has this question to finish everything, and it's, do you consider yourself a leader? Why or why not?
I want to say yes. I am a leader, and if I'm not a leader yet, I'm a leader in the making because I do want to be a leader. I want to be again the best that I can be. I'm like you said earlier. I have a very competitive nature. Like I just want to be better and keep growing and keep again inspiring people. So I am definitely more of a quiet leader. I will say that I'm very introverted. I'm very to myself, and sometimes I can be. People can describe me as quiet. But I think actions at the end of the day they're what matter the most. And yeah, no, definitely, I will say that yes, I am a leader.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much, Stephanie. This was a really, really cool conversation. I'm really excited to having the chance to meet you.
Thank you for having me.